Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. We're talking to Lana today. She's the mom of two kids with type 1 diabetes. One of them had a seizure. The other one came close due to a dosing mistake. And the results of that are her going into what she called a tailspin. So she had to take some time to address her own mental health issues, and this is her story. Please don't forget that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Are you an adult living with type 1 or the caregiver of someone who is, and a U.S. resident? If you are, I'd love it if you would go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and take the survey. When you complete that survey, your answers are used to move type 1 diabetes research of all kinds. So if you'd like to help with type 1 research, but don't have time to go to a doctor or an investigation, and you want to do something right there from your sofa, this is the way. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. It should not take you more than about 10 minutes. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the Eversense CGM. Eversense is going to let you break away from some of the CGM norms you may be accustomed to. No more weekly or bi-weekly hassles of sensor changes. Never again will you be able to accidentally bump your sensor off. You won't have to carry around CGM supplies. And worrying about your adhesive lasting? Well, that's a thing of the past. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. US Med is sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast, and we've been getting our diabetes supplies from US Med for years. You can as well. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. Use the link or the number, get your free benefits check, and get started today with US Med. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox.
Hi, I am Lana. I am a mom of two kids with type 1 diabetes for the last 5 years. So both kids were diagnosed when they were 7 years old, and they are now 11 and 13. Yeah, my son was first, and then my daughter was 14 months after that. And we live in Canada.
Canada? All right. Hold on a second. They were both 7 years old?
Yeah, both 7.
No kidding. And
yeah, when my son was diagnosed, I remember the nurse saying, "Oh, let's weigh your daughter, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on her too," and just kind of, said "Yeah, there's a chance that she could get it too. So we'll just keep an eye on her, and we'll weigh her too." So it was always in the back of my mind. And
wait a second. First of all, let me do this because of your Canadian accent. I'm not sure. Is it Lana or Lana?
Lana.
Lan. I got it. And then what the hell does weighing the kids have to do with figuring out if they have diabetes?
I don't know if it was just kind of being a part of it, that they just had her weighed too. And it was kind of just maybe keep an eye on her weight so that if she was to drastically lose weight, it would be a red flag.
Seems like a Canadian thing, but okay. All right. Do you know the last Canadian I interviewed? I brought up Bill and Ted McKenzie, and they didn't know who it was. Oh my God, you don't either.
Is that the movie Bill and Ted?
Wait. How come I'm so old?
I'm old too.
Wait, how old are you?
I am 44.
Okay, you've never seen a movie called Strange Brew? Bob and Doug McKenzie, but have you ever seen that?
No.
Unbelievable. Okay.
No.
I'm now asking every Canadian if they've ever seen Strange Brew. It's on my Canadian question list. Oh, it's on my Canadian question list now. You don't have to ask people. Although if you go out there and do a survey, I would be interested in the results.
It was on my list to watch it.
Oh, I don't think you should do that. Although it does still get good scores. I guess people enjoyed it. You know Rick Moranis, right?
No, I honestly, I don't watch TV.
Lana, what part of the Canada are you from? Are you in the Yukon?
No, I have a TV. I don't watch TV.
You have a TV. Well, that's handy. Wait, but Rick Moranis, one of your most famous Canadian comedians, you don't know him.
I've heard the name, but it doesn't really click of
Hold
who
on
he
a
is.
second. We'll get back to your kid in a second. Both of them. But first, Celine Dion, yes or no, you know who that is?
Yes.
Jim Carrey.
Yes.
Drake.
Kind of.
Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
Justin Bieber.
Yes.
Ryan Gosling, Canadian or American?
Canadian.
Good. Seth Rogen, Canadian or American?
Oh, I don't know.
Is he Jewish?
I don't know who he is.
Oh, I'm stuck. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Recently deceased Matthew Perry, star of Friends. Do you know who that is?
Yes.
Can you name a Neil Young song?
No.
Interesting. The captain of the Starfleet Enterprise. Canadian or not Canadian? The original.
No idea.
What's his name?
No idea.
Did he just go to space in his 90s or no? For real?
No idea.
All right, I've got three more. Jason Priestley. Yes or no, you know who that is?
Yes.
Excellent.
See, I think I'm stuck in the 80s, 90s. I know those people.
All right, hold on. Let's do it this way then. Joshua Jackson?
Nope.
Interesting. Donald Sutherland?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Tom Green?
Is that a comedian?
Lana? It is. Lana. Wait,
Yeah,
hold on a
that
second.
one sounds familiar.
Do you know who he was married to for a bit?
No.
Lispy Girl from the E.T. movie. Who's that?
Drew Barrymore?
Good. Okay. Well, we found something you know about. All right. This was fun. I hope you didn't feel put on the spot in the first 4 minutes.
I've always been scared of games like Trivial Pursuit because,
you should be. You don't know any. Those people were all Canadian.
Really?
Seth Rogen is insanely famous.
Okay, I'm going to look him up too.
Okay. William Shatner?
Yes.
You know that name?
Yes.
Okay. Mike Myers?
Yes.
But not Rick Moranis.
The name is familiar, but I've never listened to him.
Okay. This was a lot of fun for me. I appreciate this very much. Okay. So we're going to get past the part about them weighing your kids because I don't get that exactly. But I am interested in this. So you have two children. They're a couple years apart, but both of them were diagnosed in their 7-year-old year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other people in your family who have type 1 diabetes? Extended family even?
I have a great uncle that my dad says they think that he had type 1.
Mm-hmm. That was a long time ago, though, right?
A long time ago,
A couple generations. Okay. How about other autoimmune issues?
So I have thyroid, hypothyroid, and my husband has vitiligo.
Oh.
Those are our two autoimmune things.
The devil's brew. A father and a mother, both with an autoimmune issue.
Yeah.
You only have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
Did you mean to have more, or 2 was your number?
2 was our number.
Okay. Son was diagnosed first.
Yeah.
Let's go through that. How did you notice he had something was amiss?
So it was October 1st, and the summer before that, we had, been doing lots of camping. And so we had in our garage some cases of water bottles from our camping trips. And so I think probably the month before October, I kept going to his room and seeing that he'd been drinking water bottles. So he would just be, he was drinking, getting up in the night. Occasionally I would hear him in the middle of the night going to the bathroom. Yeah, it was just, I am a nurse, and it just kind of always was in the back of my mind. Once I just saw a few things, it just
put it together for you.
Yeah, thinking diabetes.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it to my husband, and he was like, "Oh, you're crazy. I tend to worry a lot." And, he said, "I'm crazy." So decided I'm not crazy. I'm going to ask the doctor. So I made a doctor's appointment and said, "I'm probably crazy, but I'm worried he has diabetes." Luckily, the family doctor was amazing and, just checked him right there. She's like, "Oh, let's just check him." So she did a finger poke and he was 30. So then she's like, "Oh, that must be a mistake. Let's do it again." So then she redid it and it was still high. And then,
found out you weren't crazy.
Yeah. Check for ketones and then sent us off to Emerge.
I am not allowed to, even in a joking manner, refer to my wife as crazy. It's one of our rules that we've never written down, but I know for goddamn sure is a rule.
And I'm probably imagining, like, he didn't probably say it.
Oh.
But
I'm not allowed to say it. If I say it, can I just say what happens?
What?
She goes crazy. And then she she yells at me.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I would, if I was her, remain very calm so as to not give the illusion that perhaps I am crazy. Do you know what I mean? But no, she leans into it.
Yes.
Well, that sucks. So they sent you off to the hospital. Now, are you in one of those, hold on, let me get my Canadian mouth together. Are you in one of those provinces where they give you NPH and regular, or they give you modern insulin? If you take insulin or sulfonylureas, you are at risk for your blood sugar going too low. You need a safety net when it matters most. Be ready with Gvoke HypoPen. My daughter carries Gvoke HypoPen everywhere she goes because it's a ready-to-use rescue pen for treating very low blood sugar in people with diabetes ages 2 and above that I trust. Low blood sugar emergencies can happen unexpectedly, and they demand quick action. Luckily, Gvoke HypoPen can be administered in 2 simple steps, even by yourself in certain situations. Show those around you where you store Gvoke HypoPen and how to use it. They need to know how to use Gvoke HypoPen before an emergency situation happens. Learn more about why Gvoke HypoPen is in Arden's Diabetes Toolkit at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used if you have a tumor in the gland on the top of your kidneys called a pheochromocytoma, or if you have a tumor in your pancreas called an insulinoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk for safety information. I used to hate ordering my daughter's diabetes supplies. I never had a good experience, and it was frustrating. But it hasn't been that way for a while, actually for about 3 years now, because that's how long we've been using US Med. usmed.com/juicebox or call 888-721-1514. US Med is the #1 distributor for Freestyle Libre systems nationwide. They are the #1 specialty distributor for Omnipod DASH, the #1 fastest growing tandem distributor nationwide, the #1 rated distributor in Dexcom customer satisfaction surveys. They have served over 1 million people with diabetes since 1996, and they always provide 90 days worth of supplies and fast and free shipping. US Med carries everything from insulin pumps and diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs like the Libre 3 and Dexcom G7. They accept Medicare nationwide and over 800 private insurers. Find out why US Med has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau at usmed.com/juicebox, or just call them at 888-721-1514. Get started right now, and you'll be getting your supplies the same way we do.
We started on NPH. So yeah, I remember, like, obviously in the doctor's office when she told me that, I was like, trying not to cry with the kids there, but almost on the verge of crying. And then, called my husband, told him he's got diabetes, meet me at the hospital. And so then when we were at the hospital, did blood work and all the stuff, and he wasn't in DKA. And then when we saw the endocrinologist, they said, you've got a choice. There's 2 choices we can do. We can do this type of insulin, kind of MDI route, or we can do this type of insulin, NPH. We would do the NPH if there's no one at lunchtime to give insulin. And so at the time I was working, and we kind of just thought, okay, we'll try that route.
Yeah. Lana, isn't it fantastic that the one thing that consistently gets said to me from Canadians is that entire NPH thing in Canada has to do with giving insulin at lunchtime at school. It's like somehow become a rule across an entire country. If there's no one there to give them an injection on their own, then they get NPH. Yeah. Fantastic.
And we don't have nurses. There's no one else that would give it if the parents can't. So
if I said to you in that moment when your son was diagnosed, hey, listen, we'll give you NPH if there's nobody to school to give an injection, Or, you can do this much more modern way that will lead to significantly better health outcomes. And your kid will have to teach themselves how to give themselves a shot or something like that. Like, if it was couched to you that way, do you think you would have paused? Like, hey, I can give you this insulin technology from 50 years ago, or you can have this modern stuff. Which would you like? Because
I would have chosen the modern.
Yeah, it's like they predispose people to choose they set up a false narrative. There's no nurse there, so you can't use this other insulin. But that's not true at all, because plenty of kids give themselves insulin all day long without a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't, it's one of the things I don't like about Canada.
It only lasted maybe 2 months. And then I was just like, I'm not liking this. I want to try something different. And so, then we got a prescription, and it was just, I'm going to just make it work that, I'll be there at lunchtime. So things got a bit better once we switched, and eventually he started giving it himself. And so,
is that what you did? You went to school every day?
Yeah, for quite a while.
It was at a great distance. How were you able to do that?
No, we lived right by the school, but based on like the whole experience, I was like super anxious and stressed. So I wasn't able to work for quite a while. So it was probably 6 months before I went back to work after he was diagnosed.
A problem too. Okay, so you just kind of slipped on your penguin shoes, skied down the hill, gave the insulin, and then went back home to cry in a corner. What was your situation like?
Like, I remember before we got Dexcom, there was moments that I was like sitting outside of his school crying, just worrying, thinking, what's his number? And my job was like a half an hour away. So it just didn't seem feasible that I could drive a half an hour away and not be close to him when the school didn't have much support to be able to help him. I just always made it my thing that I was just near the school for that first little while.
Lana, did you have any signs of instability prior to the diabetes diagnosis? I just want to know. I'm not making fun of you because I've heard this story like 1,000 times from people. But my point is that prior to this happening, would you have been a person standing outside of a building crying or worried even?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely had anxiety beforehand, and like
this ramped it up.
Emotionally, I can get just dysregulated. I cry easily. And when it came to diabetes, it was pretty stressful.
Lana, I cry pretty easily too, but it's usually not about like stressful stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watch TV and cry. Well, you don't know what TV is, but when I watch TV, by the way, you might have less stress if you watch television once in a while. There's a fantastic show on Max right now that you should try. I don't know the name of it, but I'm really enjoying it. It's either called The Realm or The Rain. I'm not sure which one.
I need more TV time to relax better.
You got to veg a little bit. Have you tried the weed by any chance?
Tried the what?
Weed. Have you smoked weed to relax or done something like that? Have you gone to like lengths to try to chill out? No? Does anything help you relax?
Like, I don't know, later on in the story, I can talk more about like, I had like just like more trauma, like PTSD. And so then since then, I've learned to do things like exercising and walking and trying to eat better and just taking better care of myself. And it has helped that I'm not quite as stressed out as I used to be.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll definitely get to it. Obviously, one of the things that relaxes you isn't telling a story out of order. So let's keep going. So this goes on for a bit. And then now your daughter's diagnosed. Does it ramp up from there? Had you found any comfort prior to the second diagnosis, or were you still like struggling at that point?
No, I was doing okay. It was 14 months afterwards she was diagnosed, and things were pretty good. I was able to get back to work a little bit. I'd started a day home also, just because I still did want to be closer to home, make some more money, but not be nursing all the time. I'd started a day home, and then in September and then December, she was diagnosed.
Jeez. Hey, Lana, you just used a Canadian term I don't know. Day home?
Like childcare.
Childcare. So, okay. That's
in my house that I was looking after while they were at school.
I was kind of thinking that's what you meant, but I wasn't certain if it was like a nursing thing or not. So I just wanted to check. Okay. So you just get settled into this little rhythm, and then she gets diagnosed.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And with her, it was like I'd finger poked her a few times and everything was fine. And then just, one night she drank some milk before bed and said, "Mom, I'm still thirsty." And so just knew at that point she was really scared of needles. And so I just kind of let it be and gave her some more water to drink. And then she went back to bed. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, okay, I'm going to finger poke her now that she's sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we found out. And
oh, I'm sorry.
In the middle of the night. And then the next morning I called the endocrinologist in the middle of the night, and he had me check her for ketones while she was sleeping. I just kind of quickly did a urine check and she was okay. So he said, don't need to come to Emerge now. Just come to the diabetes clinic in the morning.
How did she handle it when she woke up to the news? How did you tell her? This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by the only 6-month wear implantable CGM on the market. And it's very unique. So you go into an office. I've actually seen an insertion done online, like a live one, they recorded it. The entire video is less than 8 minutes long, and they're talking most of the time. The insertion took no time at all, right? So you go into the office, they insert the sensor. Now it's in there and working for 6 months. You go back 6 months later, they pop out that one, put in another one. So 2 office visits a year to get really accurate and consistent CGM data. But that's neither here nor there for what I'm trying to say. So this thing's under your skin, right? And you then wear a transmitter over top of it. Transmitter's got this nice, gentle silicone adhesive that you change daily. So very little chance of having skin irritations. That's a plus. So you put the transmitter on, it talks to your phone app, tells you your blood sugar, your alerts, your alarms, etc. But if you want to be discreet for some reason, you take the transmitter off, just swoop, comes right off. No, not like peeling at it or having to rub off adhesive. It just kind of pops right off. This silicone stuff, really cool. You'll say it. And now you're ready for your big day, whatever that day is. It could be a prom or a wedding or just a moment when you don't want something hanging on your arm. The Eversense CGM allows you to do that without wasting a sensor, because you just take the transmitter off, and then when you're ready to use it again, you pop it back on. Maybe you just want to take a shower without rocking a sensor with a bar of soap. Just remove the transmitter and put it back on when you're ready. EversenseCGM.com/juicebox. You really should check it out.
Yeah, I remember I'd called my mom in the morning to say, could you just come? Caitlin's now diabetic too. Could you come help us? So my mom was there, and she woke up and I said, Caitlin, I'm so sorry. I did a finger poke in the morning and you have diabetes too. We have to go to the hospital.
Oh.
And so she started crying, freaking out. And then, slowly just got her in the car and off we went.
Jeez. Now, at that point, is your son using a pump or a glucose monitor by then?
Yeah, he was on Dexcom and MDI, no pump yet.
Still MDI. Now, did you get her a Dexcom immediately?
We actually got her a Libre at first.
Okay.
Just because of insurance, we ended up with a Libre first, and then a couple months later, then switched to Dexcom.
Moved it to Dexcom. How did she accept the addition of the device?
It was okay. The first few days were hard. I remember that day doing blood work was horrible. It took a few people to hold her down to get blood work done. And we ended up getting a psychologist appointment just to kind of help do some relaxation things with her to get calmer with doing the needles.
Right.
But soon after it was okay with both of them.
That's excellent. Well, it sounds like they adapted pretty well. You adapted well too, or did your anxiety just double when it was the second kid?
I think it was easier. We didn't need to go through all the training again, but it was still very emotional.
How did your husband handle it?
He's not outwardly emotionally like I am. Mm-hmm. So he kind of keeps things to himself a little bit more, but he's also anxious, and we were both stressed.
Wow.
Sure.
Oh, well, that sucks. I'm sorry. But that's not really why you're here, right? You had a pretty specific reason for wanting to come on and talk. So let's maybe jump forward to that.
Okay.
One of the kids have a seizure. Both of them what happened?
So my son had a seizure, and we had gone away for the weekend to a little Airbnb cabin. And, it was supposed to be all relaxing and fun. And we had gone snowshoeing during the day, so had lots of exercise. And then that night, probably in hindsight, we obviously should have adjusted his long acting. We should have lowered it, but we had given him his normal dose.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were tired and my phone died and my husband slept through the low alarms. So he had just kind of been coasting low for a few hours in the night. Not like crazy low. It was 3.4 was the lowest.
I'm going to have to look up the conversion for that while you're talking. Hold on a second. I haven't done this in a while, but at juiceboxpodcast.com, there's a conversion chart. Works great. A1C and blood glucose calculator. What was the number you just said?
3.4.
3.4, which is 61. So he was coasting there for a few hours.
Yeah.
And then finally, maybe that new injection of basal started to ramp up a little bit. Maybe all the carbs and everything was out of his system. And then he got drugged down farther.
Yeah. So it was kind of like first thing in the morning, around 8 in the morning. We were in this cabin. And so he was in a bunk bed and I was in a loft, kind of up a few stairs.
Yeah.
And I just heard this like loud scream. It was like just this really odd sound. And so I kind of jumped out of bed. And then his bunk bed was kind of right under me. And then I saw him having the seizure. So I jumped into the bunk bed and just started kind of like screaming for my husband, wake up. And it was just like I had just woken up. So I was not completely aware. Yeah. And I was thinking, get me juice. He must be low. Get me some juice.
Mm-hmm.
Just within a few seconds, I'm like, no, he doesn't need juice. He needs his Bisquimi. So he needs glucagon. And so I was just screaming to my husband to find it in our suitcase. Yeah, then he got it for me, threw it up the bunk bed. And it was tricky, like just in my panic moment, just to get the wrapper off and to 100% figure out what I was doing. But got it done, got it given. And then it was definitely traumatic. I'm thankful my daughter didn't see it because she was in the room, but with him being up in the bunk bed, she didn't see him having a seizure.
Was she awake? Was she aware something was happening?
Yes.
She just didn't visually get to see.
Yeah.
Wow. Sorry, my daughter's had a seizure, so it made me upset when you were describing it. Because I remember all that too. The get the stuff and the yelling and, the panic and not sure how to use it and all that stuff. Back when it happened to Arden, she was just diagnosed. She was probably like 2.5. It was still like that old red box, the old Lilly injection. And yeah. I didn't even remember how to do it, to be perfectly honest. Your
brain just doesn't work when you're in that state of panic.
Yeah. And on top of that, when Arden hadn't had diabetes for very long. And when they gave us the glucagon, they said, this is glucagon. It's an emergency injection for if you have a seizure. Don't worry, you'll never need it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, well, we'll never need this. So I think I just didn't pay attention to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
How long after you crop dusted his nose did he come back?
So it was probably like the seizure maybe lasted 2 minutes. And then he was confused afterwards. So I think I was telling my husband to call 911 and we had no cell phone reception. So that wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And then he was kind of coming out of it and was confused. So we just tried to carefully get him down the ladder while he was just not completely with it. Then we were just kind of we've got to get out of here. Let's just get to the hospital just to have him checked out. He threw up all over the cabin as we got him down the ladder and then tried to clean that up, get us packed and then get everyone in the car. And then we went to the hospital.
Mm. Well, that's terrible. When you got to the hospital, did you find that you actually needed to be at the hospital or was it a precaution that didn't end up being necessary?
Probably didn't end up needing to be necessary, but they still did a bunch of tests just to kind of rule it out. Mm-hmm. It was actually a coincidence that the eMERGE doctor had a son with type 1 diabetes. So as soon as I met with this doctor, it was just I was thankful that he was the doctor and that he understood. And so he just said he was surprised with having a seizure, with that number. And so he just thought it would be safer just to rule things out of did a CT of his head. A few days later, we had to come back to do an EEG.
And I'm assuming in the panic, it never occurred to you to like test his blood sugar to see if the CGM was accurately reading or not, right?
I'm pretty sure we did.
Oh, he did. Okay. And so he was in the like 3.4 range when you tested him?
No, by then, like it had already come back up. So
I see.
It was probably like right after the seizure, we did a finger poke. And by then it was like 6 or something. So he was back up already.
Listen, not a doctor. I can't imagine you having a seizure at 3.4. Like, so I don't know. Obviously it's hard to say what would happen.
Yeah, definitely it could have been lower than that.
Yeah.
And we just didn't know that.
Right. Of course. How is the guilt afterwards for sleeping through the alarms or not plugging in the phone, that kind of stuff?
Definitely bad. Like, lots of guilt. I didn't go back to work for a little while after that. At that point, I had been back working full time as a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'd taken a little bit of time off after that and then, kind of got back to life. And then it was probably 2 months later that my daughter did a mistake with her pump. So she accidentally overdosed with her pump and gave, instead of 12 carbs, she entered in 12 units. I think the max bolus was 10. So she got 10 units in the morning. That experience kind of put me over the edge that it was just stress and like I didn't want mistakes to happen. And so I went on a stress leave after that happened with my daughter.
So you get to 2 different seizures 2 different ways. One's kind of like a slow drip, basically, from the basal. And the other one is like a big bolus right away. So she bolused she's thinking for 12 carbs. How much insulin should that have been for 12 carbs? Do you remember?
Probably would have been like 4 units.
All right. So she got 6 units too many. She didn't notice. She ate her food. And then how long after she pushed the button did the seizure happen?
So she didn't have a seizure. It was just a close call. So she had a seizure.
Oh, so walk me through what happened then.
Okay, so it was morning breakfast. So dropped her off at school, thinking everything was good. I was driving to work. And then all of a sudden she called me and she had looked at her pump, or no. Oh yeah, she was on a pump by then. So she looked at her pump and realized, Mom, I've got like 8 units on board. That doesn't make sense. And so just what? Like, what did you do? Like, how do you have 8 units on board? And then I just said, okay, I'm coming to school. So I drove back to the school, ran into the office crying. And, she was drinking her 3rd juice box at that time. And brought her back home and everything was okay once she'd had all of the carbs she needed.
So she replaced the carbs and she was fine. Like there was like literally no actual danger. Is that right?
No.
Okay. But it threw you over the edge as far as like somebody needs to be watching these kids like a hawk the whole time kind of feeling?
Yeah, it was just like, I felt over like stressed, burnt out, with working and trying to manage the 2 kids. It was like mistakes are going to happen. Like we can't do this anymore.
Okay. Is that financially, was that comfortable for you to stop working or no?
At that time I had like a full-time job. So I had benefits. So I had gotten, money while I was off. And at first I thought, okay, like I just need 2 weeks and then I'll be back and I'll be good. But it ended up being like 10 months.
And did that stretch of time, did that become more about you or more about diabetes? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, I think it was me. So like,
okay.
To be off of work, I needed to go through all of the stuff of, getting counseling, seeing a psychologist, getting on medications for my anxiety, seeing a psychiatrist, getting diagnosed with PTSD from just the seizure mainly.
Right.
Diabetes kind of triggered it, but I've had to work on my own mental health to be able to handle life.
No, sure. I'm really grateful for you to come on and talk about it like this, by the way, because you're very clear and being very honest. And I appreciate that because I'm sure a lot of people feel this way and maybe don't have great benefits or understanding employers or, you know what I mean? Anything in between the ability to take care of themselves well. Is there a way for you to help yourself, which obviously you're going to do, without the kids thinking our diabetes made mom feel this way? Do you see what I mean? Like how do you like navigate that bit of it?
Yeah, definitely. Like looking back, I, would sometimes like cry, saying like, oh, like if they were upset about diabetes, I would cry too. And like say like, oh, diabetes is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back, would try to keep myself together a little bit more so that they didn't have that feeling that it was their fault.
Is that difficult to do in that time? Like to hold it in?
It was, but I think since going through lots of counseling, it's just I've learned tools and techniques to be able to help myself better.
Did you do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing? The one thing you can see, two things you can, that whole thing?
She did that. I think like the one cool thing she did was EMDR.
Oh, a lot of people talk about that. Yeah. What was that like?
Yeah. You use your eye movements and then it rewires your brain to, heal kind of past trauma. And so you kind of go from like, what are you thinking that's negative? And you have that in your brain. And then how can you switch it to a better positive feeling?
Mm-hmm.
So in my brain, it was always like safety, like the kids aren't safe, the world is unsafe, and feeling that panic whenever anything would happen with diabetes.
Yeah.
And so doing the EMDR, eventually my brain would switch and kind of be like, they are safe. Like they've done this so many times. They know what to do to treat lows and they're going to be okay.
Mm.
And then we eventually, like sometimes just the low alarm of the Dexcom would be my trigger. And so I'm like, can we try something different? And I'm like, this is what triggers me. It's not always a thought. It's the alarm will trigger me. And so we just kind of did a simulation of like, let's pretend that they're low. And I put the alarm on for low. And then we went through the process of the EMDR.
Wow. So now the beep, beep, beep doesn't make you like triggered?
No, like it's still just like, okay, they're low, but it's just, I breathe, they're low, I deal with it. Mm-hmm. I don't go through that panic feeling.
You have two, so there's no way they're both low at the same time. So you get to experience it twice a day, probably, right? Just, it happens to one at one time and one at another time, but they're not synced up with their diabetes, are they?
Sometimes they are. And sometimes one's low and one's high. And yeah.
What's worse? A low blood sugar at 2:00 and then another one with another kid an hour later, or two at the same time?
Probably like two at the same time is not fun.
Oh my gosh. Your husband hasn't left yet? I mean, gotten lost going to the store?
No, he's still there.
And you haven't gotten lost going to the store? You'll be like, I know what to do. I'm going to drive into the snow and not come back. How are the kids doing with all of it? Like, did they have anxiety? Your daughter little, right?
They both do slightly. So they've been going through counseling kind of on and off, as they've needed. Nothing significant. I think with my son and the seizure, like that does sometimes come up that he's worried about lows. At the beginning, he would probably like over treat the lows, and I could just tell his mind was thinking, of the seizure.
Yeah. But
now, like he's pretty he doesn't like to be high either, and so he's pretty good with not over treating, but he never ignores it.
Good for him. Have you ever heard Arden discuss the seizure she had after her senior prom?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's in her she's only been on the show twice, but it's in her second episode. We talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if it'll like make you feel better or freak you out. I can't exactly tell yet. I'll share this one thing that she said. So I asked her, like, are you worried about this happening again? And she said, I did everything right. She's like, I look back, I've thought about it 1,000 times. She's like, I think it was just the extra activity throughout the day and probably a lot of adrenaline holding my blood sugar up throughout the day. And then all that insulin just caught up at the end. And, then we ate a meal in the middle of the night. She's like, and even though I'd cut my insulin back on that, I knew I didn't eat as much as normal. I took less. It was still too much. The thing that ended up comforting her was that she didn't do anything wrong. Mm-hmm. And she's like, so if it happened, it happened, but I got to live my life still. Like that was kind of her attitude about it. It was really interesting to hear her talk about it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I remember crying to my doctor about being worried about making a mistake. Like that was just the big thing in my head that, scared to make a mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no kidding. Well, even the 12 units, 12 carbs thing, that's not crazy to have happen. You're rushing around or something, and she's probably trying to get to school and, that whole thing. So, but now today, how long ago was that, by the way? How long ago were you with the therapy and doing those different techniques? How long has it been since you did that stuff?
So I went off of my stress leave just over a year ago.
Okay. And how do you feel today?
Pretty good. Like I feel, definitely things are better and more stabler. And I'm working on my own health and self-care and trying to take care of myself. But I also know that if I went back to work full time, things might go downhill again.
So you're just part-time right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have it set up so that your schedule allows you to be there during what you think of as more important times?
So currently my job is working from home. So It's actually really amazing that I can get them off to school. I'm home when they get home from school, and it's just flexible. So I can see what's happening. And it's the type of job that if something does happen, it's okay for me just to tell my coworkers, sorry, diabetes emergency, I've got to go.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. So many people work from home now. It's amazing. Yeah, like I know it doesn't seem amazing to younger people, but it really is. It's crazy. My wife has been home every day since COVID. So I don't even know how long. It feels like it's been 3 years. And she just took a different position at another company. And she's in the middle of this 2-week break right now. And she starts her new job on Monday. And she's going to have to be in the office, I think, 3 days a week. And I was like, I was so bummed out. I was like, I'm going to miss her. Like, I love that she's here and like we can see each other throughout the day and everything. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't seem as upset about leaving me as I.
There's pros and cons. I think like getting out of the house and, being social. There's good parts to that too.
No, for certain. Yeah, for real. Wow. Huh. Well, what made you want to share all this?
I think it was like you had posted something about looking for guests that had used the Bisquimi. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much that sometimes people don't know. They don't know that it's as much of a risk as it's still, like it is a risk and you should be prepared for it.
Yeah.
And just to remind people to like always have it with you, always have sugar with you. Like even just to practice, we've done that since then, but I've gotten my husband to practice doing one that was expired. And
mm-hmm. I love the way you say it, Baqsimi. I don't actually know how to say it. I say Baqsimi, but I have no idea. Not the point. The point is this is the one in the little, like, you put it up your nose and squeeze it and it like kind of shoots a powder in your nose. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he describe that as being unpleasant, pleasant, not pleasant, but what was his experience with it? Or was he so out of it he didn't really know about it?
Yeah, I don't think he even remembers that happening.
Yeah. The vomiting is common after the glucagon, I think.
Yeah.
It can be.
And I think the second reason of wanting to come on was just that, like that mental health piece that in the diabetes appointments, it's usually focused on the kids, but I think there needs to be more help for the parents to be able to kind of like just manage their mental health and to know that they need to take care of themselves kind of extra well when you've got all of this stress on you.
Yeah. No, I mean, Arden's diabetes, I mean, I guess that part of me hopes she never hears this, but Arden's diabetes like fundamentally changed my life. And my wife's as well. My son's probably too, I mean, on top of hers. I mean, once you get into a rhythm and it's a day-to-day thing, I don't think of it as a thing that I'm consciously aware of all the time. I mean, we've been at it for a long time now, but at the same time, I do think that I'm going to say something kind of weird and hippy-dippy for a second, but I think the vibration that we live at is different than it would be without diabetes. Like there's that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's like a raised level of awareness constantly, little things like even just before I started recording with you, like I have to mute my phone to record the podcast. So I looked at Arden's blood sugar before I muted the phone. And, and then there is this like small part in your head that's like, okay, well, now it's going to be an hour before you look at it again. And so now there's a little bit of me that's waiting for the table to vibrate from my phone, because it won't beep because I've silenced it, but my phone will vibrate if she gets low or high. And I think that just happening all the time. It's interesting. Or I've noticed that she's away at school now, and you only get so many touch points with your kids, like when they're older. And I feel like some of the touch points that I would use on how are you? What are you doing? What have you been working on at school? I miss you. Get used on, hey, don't forget to change your pump. Or, can you tell me how much insulin you have left if we have to order more? Like, I feel like some of my touch points get wasted on stuff like that sometimes. That makes sense.
Definitely. Like, I try to make it when they get home from school that I'll ask them something non-diabetes before I talk about diabetes, but it's hard. Just I've got my to-do list of things I need to check, and sometimes
I stopped myself. It was a smart thing to do. Like, I didn't want her to think that I just saw her like diabetes, or that I'd been sitting at home all day waiting to ask her if blah blah blah. So when she'd come home, I definitely switch to that. Just talk about anything except that.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. Good for you. Jeez. Anything happy happening? Can you share a fun story, Lana? Are there polar bears where you live or anything cool like that?
No polar bears.
Have you ever seen a Mountie?
Nope.
You have a pet penguin? Anything good? No.
I don't know. I do have like a vision of I want to just spend more time in nature. And so it's not like there's always snow here, but I like to go camping. But I do have this thought of it'd be fun to have an igloo that you could stay in.
All right. Now we're getting Canadian. Now, yeah. How often in a year do you think I hope a bear doesn't kill me?
There's no bears where I am.
Where the hell? Oh, what are you in one of those cities that they have in Canada?
It's in Alberta, and it's out of the mountains. So there's no bears here.
Gotcha. A moose ever walk through town? Anything like that?
There would be there's deer in our city. Sometimes see the deer.
Yeah, there's deer in my backyard. I was looking for a moose. So yeah. Jeez, it's kind of boring. Have you ever heard the episode where I'm talking with a 9-year-old Canadian girl, and I try to convince her that she's not even sure if there are cars in the United States or not, because she's never been there.
I've heard a few of your Canadian episodes.
I just love Canada. I love how you guys stab each other in bars and play hockey. It's all fantastic. I think my honest to God favorite Canadian thing that sticks out from the podcast is when the one girl said she was a can-can dancer in the Yukon. I don't know if you ever heard that or not.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, this is my favorite Canadian thing that's ever happened, actually. Anyway, what have we not talked about that we should have? I don't want to miss anything, and we're in the last quarter of your time. So is there other stuff outside of this topic that you're interested in sharing?
I know. I feel like the stress and the mental health kind of burden, it's just I think it's aged me. And so during COVID, I'd put on 60 pounds, and I was just I thought I had lupus. I was in chronic pain, and part of it I think was stress eating and just living a life of stress. So it's just really important to me now to try to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And recently I've kind of signed up for some program that I want to prevent myself from getting type 2 diabetes. So that's kind of my newest thing that I'm trying to learn about, insulin resistance in myself. And I just feel with them having type 1, I owe it to them to take care of myself and prevent type 2.
Yeah. I knocked 50 pounds off with GLP if you want to give that a shot.
Really? Yeah. I've lost 30 so far. So
good for you.
Go,
that's wonderful. Yeah, I think I might have had an actual metabolic problem. So I didn't change how I ate and lost 50 pounds. But nevertheless, oh, yeah.
It feels good to feel better. And so, do something. If you're not finding what's working, try something different.
Yeah, no, I can't agree with you enough. I had done the things and nothing happened. So I was like, all right, well, I got to try something else. This medication became so popular, and I talked to a doctor about it. It's been a year and a month now since I started it. And I've lost, like I said, I've lost 50 pounds. And my wife's used it as well. Really changed her life. And I saw my doctor on Saturday. I mean, she was taking my vital signs and she kept like under her breath going like a kid. She kept saying to me, she's like, you're like a kid. These numbers are terrific. And I was like, yep. And like,
That's good.
yeah, all my aches and pains are gone. And, you know, I went down so many sizes in clothing. I went from a 2X t-shirt to a large. Like I didn't even wear a large t-shirt when I was like 18. My waist size, I know ladies just have pant sizes, but my waist went from a 38 to a 32.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I'm glad you're doing it. So you're doing it with exercise. You changed your eating habits back to where they were prior, probably.
Yeah, I've tried changing the timing so I don't eat after supper. And then, so yeah, a little bit of timing and then lessening my carbs, trying to eat more protein and fiber and, you know, just overall trying to eat healthier.
Just good ideas. Yeah.
Exercising.
That's excellent. Yeah, the not eating after a certain time, once you get to a certain age, is very, I think, kind of important, to be honest. Especially you don't want like overnight food sitting in your stomach and digesting. And, you know, there's just a lot of reasons to want to avoid that. So are you eating in like a fasting window? Have you tried that?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. But I just like supper is the last time I eat. And then breakfast, I'll usually kind of delay it a little bit. I used to like, you know, have something carbs right first thing in the morning, where now I just try to have something more like protein and a little bit of carbs. And I would probably wait a little bit till after I exercise.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I mean, it's 1:00 in the afternoon here. When you and I get done, I'm going to eat breakfast. And I've been up since 8:00. So yeah. I kind of agree with all those ideas, actually. I think you're onto something. Very nice. It's excellent. And do you feel better? Like in general, like body-wise, you do feel better, right?
Definitely, yeah. Like before, I would just be so achy that it would be hard to get up off the floor. Mm. Just all of the weight on my joints and everything. Like I just, you know, I was tired all the time. I was crankier. I was more anxious. So taking care of myself has been really important.
We've noticed all the same stuff. Like we were getting to the point now where like we'd watch TV for an hour. I know TV is this thing. It's a box in your room, Lana, and like a picture comes on, it has sound. But like, so we'd do that and stand up to walk out of the room, and one of us would like limp out of the room, or like your back wouldn't straighten all the way up, and you're like laughing about it, but you're also like, what the is happening? All that's like gone now. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool. Long term for your kids. I mean, they're still pretty young, right? So are you very involved at this point out of the stress anxiety piece, or do you let them do it and you kind of oversee it? Like, what's the day-to-day look like with you guys?
They're 11 and 13 now, and I'm still fairly involved. My thought is just, you know, after they're 18, once they move out, like then they have to do it 100%. And right now I'm happy to help them, you know, and I know eventually they need to be a little bit more independent, but for now I don't feel it's the right time, and just do what I can to take off some of the burden from them. But they do some things on their own, like at school, they know their carbs, what they're eating, and they enter it in the pump, and they're doing that independently. Occasionally with my daughter, she'll forget doses. So I've started recently just doing another text to her just to remind her.
Yeah.
But this is the first year that they've been more independent. Before it was for sure, I was always texting them and they would tell me what their dose was.
Right. So you see it growing slowly.
Yeah.
That's how I like it, actually. Do you think if you release them feral right now, they could take care of themselves?
No, I don't think like their brains aren't ready to take care of them. Yeah.
Lana, I used to take a lot of crap from people who'd be like, you're doing it all for her. She's not going to know how to do it when she's an adult, like all that stuff. And I would always tell them, like, first of all, we talk about it while we're doing it. It's not a big secret. You know, like I see a plate, this looks like this much, that looks like this, looks like that. Like maybe we should extend it here, etc., like that kind of stuff. And so she was learning as we were going. And then there's times where you just be like, hey, bolus your meal and see what you think. Or we'd even do that thing where I'd be like, hey, I know how much I think you should have. What do you think? And then she'd say, and I'd be like, well, let's try what you think. You know, and like we would do that stuff a lot. And then, I mean, Arden's 2 years into college now. She's almost done her second year, which is insane. And she's doing great. Like her A1C is I mean, I don't even really look at it anymore, to be perfectly honest with you. I'd have to look to see what it is.
You definitely do that too. Try to get them just to kind of help with some decisions and, what do you think? And, we do the sugar surfing method kind of. Just recently I've listened to that episode of yours with Dr. Ponder.
Okay.
So kind of trying to just teach them that a little bit, and just he's interested in learning about clarity. So every week I'll print off the AGP report, just as kind of looking for things. And, he's curious. So he's wanting to know, why I might make a change, or
that's great.
Look at it and see what he thinks. So
I like a very slow, steady handoff that takes years, actually. I'm probably with you. I don't like the idea of just flopping all this on an 11-year-old and being like, hey, you can do this, because I'm not sure that it works that way.
If I'm stressed doing it, I'm sure they would be stressed doing it themselves.
Yeah.
So.
Now, if they came to me and said, look, I want you out of this, I'd say, all right, well, I can, you can do it, but, we're going to have checks and balances in place. And then once it all looks good, then, okay, but it's not just going to flop. I mean, honestly, they're 13 and 11, right? What else are they in charge of? Nothing. You know what I mean? So I think it's weird to put an 11-year-old in charge of a major health thing that's difficult and daily and unrelenting. Just seems strange. Yeah. So I agree with the idea. Have you heard the pro tip series for the podcast?
Yes.
Okay. Was that helpful?
Definitely.
Oh,
Yeah.
Good.
I've recommended it a lot to other people that have been diagnosed since my kids were. And definitely love the pro tips, and kind of just random other ones that I've listened to, the defining diabetes. I'll kind of just go through the lists with the pictures of what is in each one, and then pick what episode is something I want to learn about that day.
Very nice. I shared that series this morning because somebody put up a photo of something that is very clearly something called feet on the floor. And another person came in and said, that's Dawn phenomenon. I was like, it is not. That is not Dawn phenomenon. So I said, hey, here's a, defining diabetes series. You can listen to what these different things are, these different terms, but you're misconstruing feet on the floor with Dawn phenomenon. I like that because they're shorter episodes and people can get, it's just a lot of terms, Lana. You know what I mean? How are you supposed to know what all this stuff means? It's just a lot. So yeah, very cool. I appreciate you doing this very much. I am going to say goodbye to you, and then I'm actually going to go I'm doing an interview with the New York Times today.
Oh, fun. I have one more question.
Go ahead. Do your thing.
Canada. Is there ever a chance that you would come to Canada to be a guest speaker?
Okay. I was just approached by somebody on the West Coast, and I said I'll do it remotely, but I can't. I mean, it was a 6-hour flight. I was like, I'm not doing that. I mean, if you could do more Toronto, Montreal, that's closer to me.
But just something to think about. I know there's lots of people that would love to have you come to Canada. And so
I would love to see Canada.
It's a great place.
Well, listen, first of all, I think it would be nice if when I spoke about Canada, I actually knew what I was talking about. That would, first of all, I think be lovely. instead of how I handle it right now.
I think you should put it on your list, and then I'm sure there'd be lots of people that would love to figure out a way to do a conference.
Yeah, no, I was very excited when someone reached out, but they were about as far away from me as they could possibly be without being in the tip of Alaska. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to come to Canada. I hope somebody invites me and it tells me it's not 6 hours on a plane and 2 layovers and stuff like that. But for those people, I was like, I will absolutely do it virtually. No problem at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, please reach out, Canada, during the warm months, if you would.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lana. I don't want to be cold. I just want to be clear about that.
Yeah. Come in the summer. It'll be fine.
Absolutely will. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you doing this very much. Hold on 1 second for me. Okay. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. A huge thanks to US Med for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Don't forget, usmed.com/juicebox. This is where we get our diabetes supplies from. You can as well. Use the link or call 888-721-1514. Use the link or call the number, get your free benefits check so that you can start getting your diabetes supplies the way we do from US Med. I want to thank the Eversense CGM for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more about its implantable sensor, smart transmitter, and terrific mobile application at eversensecgm.com/juicebox. And keep listening. There's some exciting news coming very soon in new Eversense ads. All right, kids, we're done. We're at the end. Just do me one last favor. If you can, if you could, please. If you have the need or the desire for something that one of the sponsors is providing, please use my links or my offer codes. They help the show so much. And that means me. You're helping me to make this podcast every day. You're helping me to support the private Facebook group, do all the things that I'm doing. I'm not asking you to buy something you don't want or something you don't need. But if you're going to get one of these items, use my links or my offer codes. They help me a ton. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting. I really do genuinely appreciate it. I'll be back very soon with another episode. Hey, what's up, everybody? If you've noticed that the podcast sounds better and you're thinking like, how does that happen? What you're hearing is Rob at Wrong Way Recording doing his magic to these files. So if you want him to do his magic to you, wrongwayrecording.com. You got a podcast? You want somebody to edit it? You want Rob.